Our group departed northward from Johannesburg early on a Friday morning, just before sunrise, to gather in Modimolle for what is certainly a South African road trip tradition, a wimpy breakfast. Modimolle after our breakfast and continued our journey northwards via the towns of Vaal-Water and Lephalale to then cross the border into Botswana at Groblersbrug. Crossing on the South African side went very smoothly. There's always a wonderful feeling when you cross the Limpopo. You know that the trip is finally underway. The Botswana side of our crossing took some time due to customs payment systems delays, but once we were through, we filled our vehicle's tanks with diesel and then travelled onwards via Palapia and Sorowe to Khama Rhino Sanctuary. The Khama Rhino Sanctuary had been mostly uneventful, apart from having to deal with a flat tire on one of the caravans. We checked ourselves in and headed to our first campsite. Our plan was to do a minimal setup with pre-cooked meals at camp and then get settled around the fire. Khama offers lovely campsites surrounded by beautiful trees, and their ablution facilities are more than adequate by Botswana campsite standards. We got set up and enjoyed our first night in the bush. So this thing goes. We opted to go for a quick morning game drive before we left Khama that day. But the first thing to do that morning was get some coffee on the go. Khama offers you a bit of game viewing with some roads to traverse in this sanctuary that go by some pans where plains game and rhinos will gather. There's also a bird hide to enjoy. We only saw signs of rhino, with plenty of middens along the game viewing roads. We packed up our camp, stocked up on some firewood and left Khama around mid-morning, and continued to head northwest towards Letlhakane, where we filled up our tanks with diesel again. From Letlhakane we headed towards Kubu Island, but not before stopping at the village of Matshumo to check in with the Kubu office to confirm the road conditions across the salt pans. We were advised to make use of the top road via Tswagong due to the tough conditions approaching from the south. We encountered varied road conditions from wide open to narrow, enclosed by mapani trees. One thing you cannot be precious about on this kind of trip is getting your car scratched, your caravan scratched. The trees get really narrow over certain sections and you will come out with some proper bush rash. Conditions heading in were fairly straightforward, with the occasional detour required. One of the pieces of advice the office gave to us was to never stray too far away from the main tracks. There was still quite a bit of standing water from the previous rainfall, and this led the tracks to become quite muddy, and as there were so many, you had to pick a line and go with it. As you approach the island, you start to realize the isolation and how far away you are from everything. There's just horizon in every direction that you look. It really is an awesome feeling. The pans near the campsite near the island were fairly dry upon our arrival. Little did we know that there was about to be some cloud build-up, which was totally unexpected for us. And the evening had a serious thunder shower in store for us. We had hoped to sit around the fire that evening, but the heavens opened up and we had a proper thunder shower for around 6 hours or so. At first light the next morning, there was spectacular beauty on display. The overnight rain had transformed the pans from something that was dry to like an ocean. The Easter moon set behind us, and the sun rose on the other, and it lit up the pans something extraordinary. The roads were full of water from the previous night's rain, and we had a few close encounters with muddy patches, folks veering away from the main track. Lessons well learned. We also spotted some flamingos flying from nearby Pan. This particular section posed a proper challenge. It had been tricky on the first day, and now with the extra rain, became even more difficult to cross. But we powered on through with a little bit of slipping and sliding here, some attempts by caravans to overtake the cars, but all in good fun, and we survived. Same route out from Kubu back to the tarmac. We bypassed Orapa, stopped off at Rockorps to refuel, and headed on to Maun. Our overnight in Maun was at a place called Sitatunga Camp. We arrived in Maun as the sun was setting, after a long day's drive from Kubu, and headed to our campsite at Sitatunga. The next morning we had planned to collect our supplies and stock up on our necessary items before we headed up towards the Kwai concession to our campsite at Mokgoto. If you've hung around until the end, thanks for watching. Hope you found this informative and inspiring. Hope it gets you out there.